Good morning. Good morning. So all around the world, people tell stories, and they tell stories differently. And they have different stuff. For example, in Haiti, if someone wanted to tell a story, a song, a riddle, they would say, creak. And if the people in that space wanted to hear that person tell a story, a song, a riddle, they would say, crack. And that means, the creak means, I have a story to share. Crack means, bring forth your story, we're ready to listen. And so they would say, for example, they'd go like this, creak. Crack. And the bear climbed the tree and took the moon out the sky. Creak. Crack. And he brought it back down and gave it to the people in the village. Creak. Crack. Now if I said creak and you did not say crack, I would know that you were distracted. It's a way of keeping the audience on the same page. The indigenous people of this land, some of them also have a call and response. They say, hey, and the audience says, oh. Hey, oh. And the bear saw the moon up in the sky. And he went up in the sky, and he took that moon from the sky. Hey, oh. And so, once again, it's keeping us all on the same page. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about young children when they're like 2 or 3 years old. They walk up to you and they say, you know what? See, they don't walk up to you and say, that's a bus, that's blue. They walk up to you and say, you know what? Don't go anywhere, I'm going to tell you something. I'm 2. You know what? That's the sky. So, so nobody taught them that. That's natural. That call and response is natural, And then I was thinking about slang. And, when I was a teenager, which wasn't that long ago, we used to say, what's happening? What's happening? That was short for what is going on, What's happening? Then became, what's up? But now the boys and girls on the block, they go, sup? All shorthand, right? They took a whole sentence, sup? So when I say wha, I need for you to say sup, right? Wha, wha. Long ago, the earth and the sky were very close. Whoa! And the people liked it that way because the sky was nothing but food. Whoa! Whenever people were hungry, all they had to do was reach up, grab a handful of sky food, and eat it all. Whoa! They didn't have to work. The food was free. Every day was like a holiday. Whoa! Reach up, take as much sky food as they wanted to. Whoa! But you know how people get when things are given to them, right? They're a little careless, right? Reach up, grab a handful of sky food, take one bite out, throw it on the ground. Whoa! Take another piece of sky food, take one bite out, throw it on the ground. Whoa! The sky guy like that. He didn't like that at all. He said, I give these people the gift of food, and what do? They throw it on the ground like garbage. That doesn't make me feel good. So he wanted to get everyone's attention. So he sent some rolling thunder across the sky, got everyone's attention. Whoa! I'll tell you, whoa! I'm tired of looking down and seeing pieces of sky food on the ground like garbage. The very next time I see somebody waste so much as a piece of my sky food, I'm going to move far away. You won't have me to eat anymore. You'll have to work. Whoa! People got scared, and they behaved accordingly. Whenever they're hungry, they think about it. Am I hungry? Or am I just nervous? I'm nervous. Whoa! Am I hungry? No. Whoa! I'm hungry. Reach up, take a little piece of sky food out, eat it all. Whoa! Reach up, take another piece of sky food, eat it all. Whoa! Things went along okay for a while. If they took a piece of sky food out that they couldn't finish, they'd give it to a friend. Whoa! Reach up, take another piece. They couldn't finish, they give it to a friend. Whoa! Things went along okay for a while. But one day, I don't know who it was. It could have been a storyteller. I don't know. Somebody reached up into the sky, took a handful of sky food out of the sky, big enough to feed 40 people for a month. Took one bite out of the end, looked around the edges, and threw that sky food over his shoulders. And it landed on the ground. Boom! Whoa! Boom! Whoa! And this guy started to rise up. They said, uh-oh, someone raised to the sky. Someone raised to the sky food. We're sorry, come back. We're sorry, come back. And this guy kept getting higher and higher. Whoa. Higher and higher. Whoa. So he got way up there where it is now. And people, they couldn't reach it. And they went to bed hungry that night. And in the morning when they woke up, they were starving. By noontime, they were ravenous. The creator looked down and took pity on people. So he sent down some seeds. They started to till the soil. They planted some broccoli and squash, zucchini and yucca, potatoes and carrots, greens. And then some other folks, they started to raise livestock, chicken, goats, and cattle. And then some other folks, they had to get jobs. They became bank tellers, story librarians, teachers, doctors, nurses, lawyers. And ever since that day, people have had to work. Whoa! Now you know. Whoa! That story is comes from West Africa. It's a wonderful picture book. In some books it's called Why We Have to Work. In other books it's called Why the Sky is Far Away. So I was thinking about stepmothers and how they catch so much bad press. You know, thanks to Disney and the Grimm brothers. They had some issues, those boys. But there's so many stories about mean stepmothers. You know, you get that with Cinderella, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel. And I'm thinking, wow, awful lot of stories about mean stepmothers. I haven't read any about mean stepfathers. And I thought, I'm a storyteller. I should find some stories about a good stepmother. So I went to the library, public library, and I'm walking around that section, that 398.2 section, and I'm walking around, and all of a sudden a hardback book falls off the uppermost shelf, lands on my little pinky. Wham! I go, woo! The book hits the floor, opens up, the pages go, rip, rip. Right there it says, Good Stepmother Story. So I scoop it up, because I'm quick like that. Ready? And here it is. There was this boy who was 10 years old, and his mother died. He's very sad that she died. He was confused about her death, and he was angry about her death. And after about a year's time, his father remarried. He married a woman whose name was Sonia, and she was as beautiful as the morning sun. And Sonia, she loved the boy very much. But the boy, he was so sad that his mother died. He was angry that she died. He was confused about her death. And now he felt threatened by Sonia's presence. He felt his father wouldn't love him as much, and she wouldn't love him at all. But she loved the boy very much. She'd make beautiful clothing for the boy, but the boy would wear the clothing and run through the briars and rip them. She'd make wonderful meals for the boy would not touch the food. Try as she would, she could not win this boy's love. One morning, the father got up and went hunting. Sonia said, "Today, I'm going to talk to my stepson about our feelings toward one another, for I love him dearly, and I need for him to return that love to me." And she walked into his room, and he was sitting on his cot. And he had a feeling that she was going to come in and talk to him about his feelings. He didn't want to talk about his feelings. He was confused. He was angry. He was sad. He didn't want to talk about his feelings. As soon as she walked into the room, that boy jumped up and said, "I hate you. You're not my real mother. I hate you. I'll never love you. I'm running away." And off he went. Sonia sat down and she cried. Finally, her husband came home and she said, "Our son ran away." The father went down to the riverbank where many of the boys and girls would go and spend time, and sure enough, the boy was there, throwing rocks into the water. The father walked over and placed his arm on his shoulder, and they sat down on a log. And they talked for a long, long time about many, many things. And then they walked home, arm in arm. When they got home, Sonia prepared a wonderful meal for them. They ate of that meal. Then they each went to their rooms, all except Sonia. Sonia left that house. She walked out of the village, down a dirt road, into the bush. Sonia went to the home of the wise one. Now, the wise one of the village is a man or woman of the village that knows the ways of the mind as well as the ways of the heart. Sonia said, wise one, you must give me a love potion so I may give it to my stepson, so he will learn to love me, for I love him dearly, and I need for him to return that love to me. The wise one said, first you must bring me a whisker from a ferocious mountain lion. Come again? You must bring me a whisker from a ferocious... How can I do that? Use your wits. When Sonia went home, she thought about that all night long. She thought, and finally in the morning, she came up with a plan. For you see, my friends, the morning is wiser than the evening. And Sonia left that house. She took with her a sack. And in that sack, she placed 4 pieces of meat. And Sonia walked away from the lowlands to the highlands to the mountains, till she came to the cliffs and she saw a cave. And she said, surely there must be a ferocious mountain lion living in that cave. Sonia reached into that sack and took out that first piece of meat, placed it in front of the cave, and went back 100 yards. And she hid in the bushes. And sure enough, a ferocious mountain lion came out of that cave, smelled the meat, ate the meat, and went back into the cave. Sonia reached into that sack, took out that second piece of meat, placed it in front of the cave, and went back 50 yards. But this time she did not hide, she stood in the open. The mountain lion came out of that cave, looked right at Sonia, smelled the meat, ate the meat, and went back into the cave. Sonia reached into that sack and took out that third piece of meat, placed it in front of the cave, and took 10 steps back. The mountain lion came out of that cave, looked right at Sonia. Sonia was frightened, but she was a brave woman. The mountain lion smelled the meat, ate the meat, and went back into the cave. Sonia reached into that sack and took out the last piece of meat, placed it in front of the cave, and took 2 steps back. The mountain lion came out of the cave, looked at Sonia, smelled the meat, started to eat the meat. Sonia inched forward, leaned over, reached out, grabbed a hold of one of the whiskers, and boom! The mountain lion was still eating the meat. Sonia inched away and she got on top of bushes, and she ran all the way back to the wise man's house and said, wise man, here's a whisker from a ferocious mountain lion. Now give me my love potion, so I may give it to my stepson so he will learn to love me. The wise man took the whisker and said, indeed, this is a whisker from a ferocious mountain lion. Yes, it is. Now give me my love potion. And he looked at Sonia and said, I'll not give you a love potion. But he silenced her and said, you must approach your stepson the same way you approach the lion. And Sonia thought about that, and she said, you mean slowly and patiently? And the wise one nodded. And Sonia did approach her stepson slowly and patiently. In a matter of 3 weeks, the boy started to smile at her. In 5 weeks' time, he'd help her out around the house. In 7 weeks' time, they'd go for long walks with one another. He showed her how to skip rocks across the water. In 12 weeks' time, they became best of friends. That boy never forgot his real mother, but he found room in his heart to love his stepmother also. And that's the story of the lion's whiskers. They say when a lion is feeling its oats, it can roar, you can hear that roar 10 miles away. So one morning the lion woke up and said he was just feeling his oats. He wanted to be told that he was indeed the king of the forest. And he looked around, and he let out a great big roar, and he looked across the field and saw a zebra. He said, yo, Stripes, come here. Zebra came over to the lion. Lion said, "Who's the king of the forest?" Zebra said, "You are, Mr. Lion." "That's right. Now get out of here." Zebra ran off so fast he dropped the stripe. Lion looked so leopard up in the tree. He said, "Yo, Spots, come here." Leopard came down from that tree. Lion said, "Who's the king of the forest?" Leopard said, "You are, Mr. Lion." "That's right. Now get out of here." Leopard ran off so fast he dropped the Spot. Lion looked out in the field, saw a great big she-elephant. Said, "Yo, Trunks, come here." The she-elephant started to sashay over to the lion. Lion said, "Who's the king of the forest?" That she-elephant quickly wrapped her trunk around that lion and went wham, 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 whoo! Threw that lion up against a tree. Bam! Lion was peeling him off that tree. Here comes a she-elephant right at the lion. Lion said, "Hey, hey, you don't have to get mad if you don't know the answer." So my grandparents came from the Cape Verde Islands, which is a group of islands right off the west coast of Africa. And it was a Portuguese colony up until 1975. And so a lot of those men, the only way to get off those islands was to get a job on a ship. And most of those ships were whaling ships. And so a lot of Cape Verdean men became whalers, and they sailed all around the world. And along with the Portuguese whaling industry all around the world. And many of those ships came up to New England, to New Bedford, the whaling capital of New England. And on my father's side, it was his grandfather was a whaler. He whaled there in the late 1800s, settled up in Massachusetts in the late 1800s, and went back and got his family and brought his family back to America. And a lot of Cape Verdeans would come over as seasonal workers. So the first groups that came, and they worked the whaling industry, and then they worked the cranberry bog. They had to clear the land, and they were lumberjacks, and they cleared the lands. They created these cranberry bogs, and then it was a big industry of cranberry. Not so much now, but down in southeastern Massachusetts, cranberries were the big thing. And the Cape Verdeans would come over as seasonal workers. They'd come all the way to America, pick cranberries, and well, what they would do is they'd come over in the spring and pick strawberries, and then in the summer they'd pick the blueberries, and then in the fall they'd pick the cranberries, and then they'd go back to Cape Verde for the winter and come back the following year, and many would stay. And so I always looked at that, these brave men from many different cultures that were whalers. We don't want to mess with those beautiful animals now, but this was back then. How brave is that to go out in the oceans of the world and pick a fight? You're in a wooden ship and you're going to go pick a fight with the largest mammal on the planet. And a harpoon is nothing but like a spear with a rope at the end of it. And so these men were chasing the largest mammal on the planet, and they started picking some of the smallest berries on the planet. You know? So this is a story from the Cape Verde. There's a fellow over there in Cape Verde. We call him Shadu. Can you say that? Shadu. We call him Shadu because he's always telling people what they should do. You know what you should do? You know what you should do? Everybody knows something like that, right? You know what you should do? Well, we called him Shadu. Now, Shadu had 3 sons, 3 boys, and they were good boys, good boys, good boys. And he was raising these boys by himself, for his wife had passed away. But he was doing a good job, good job, good job. They were good boys, good boys, good boys. The oldest boy, his name was Manut. Can you say that? Manut. The second boy, his name was Manuel. The third boy, his name was Alfred. And they were good boys, good boys, good boys. But they all had a little nervous movement, you see. For example, Manut would always do this. All the time. He'd be mashing up corn in the pilon, making cornmeal. Boom, boom, boom. He'd stop and go. All the time. And then Manuel would always do this. He'd be digging up cassava and manioc in the garden. He'd stop and go. All the time. And then the youngest boy, Alfred, would always do this. You'd be talking to Alfred, he goes, all the time. Now, their father had been courting this woman. Her name was Anna Maria. all Cape Verdean woman. Her name's Anna Maria. And he invited her over the house for dinner to meet the boys. But before Anna Maria arrived, the father says to the boys, boys. Anna Maria is coming here for dinner tonight, boys. And I want you boys to be well behaved. For you see, if Anna Maria likes you boys, she'll marry me. I will have a wife, and you, my boys, will have a mother. I know you will be well behaved, but Munut, when Anna Maria comes here tonight, I don't want you doing that. What, Papa? This Munut, you're always doing this Munut. Don't do this, Munut. Okay, Papa. Munut, yeah, Papa. Stop it, Munut, yeah, Papa. And you, Manuel, yeah, Papa. Manuel, yeah, Papa. Manuel, when Anna Maria comes here tonight, I don't want you doing that. What, Papa? Manuel, watch me, you see. Don't do this, Manuel. Okay, Papa. Manuel, yeah, Papa. Stop it, Manuel, yeah, Papa. And you, Alfred, yeah, Papa? Alfred, yeah, Papa. Alfred, when Anna Maria comes here tonight, I don't want you doing that. What, Papa? This, you're always doing this. Don't do this. Okay, Papa. Alfred, yes, Alfred. Stop it, Alfred. Yes, Papa. Well, that night, the table was laden with food. There was couscous, jag, jigacy, conch, manioc, linguiça, goufang. The house smelled, what? Anna Maria, she knocks on the door. She do open the door. Anna Maria, Entali. And Anna Maria walks into the house. And the father says, Anna Maria, senta, ba senta. And Anna Maria, she sits down. The father, he looks at the boys and he goes, boys. Senta boys. And the boys, they sit down. The father, he sits down and he blesses the table. He says, bakume, eat. And the boys, they start to eat. They have one hand on their lap and they're eating over their plates. Anna Maria, she looks at Manut, she looks at Manuel, she looks at Alfred, she looks at the father, goes, Oh, she do, he's proud of his boys, you see. Once again, the boys eating over their plates. Anna Maria, she looks at Manut, Manuel, Alfred, she smiles. The father's so proud of his boys. Finally, the boys, they're done eating. They're waiting to be excused from the table. And Manut is starting to lose it now, you see. Manut knows he can't control himself. All of a sudden, Manut jumps up and goes, look at the cow! Man, he says, where's the cow? I was like, leave the cow alone. So, there was this school in Jamaica, and they sent out someone from the administrative building to check on how the students were learning, and if they were learning, and how the teachers were teaching them. So this administrator comes in and he goes in, he walks up to one of the classes, and he walks over to one of the boys, and he says, "Who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" And the boy says, "Not me, sir. I walk home the other way from school." Oh, so he goes over to the principal. He says, "What's your teacher's teacher?" I went in the classroom. I say to the boy, "Who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" Him say, "Not I, sir. I walked the other way home from school." He says, "Whoa, wait a minute. Well, which boy was it?" He goes, the boy in the back there, the tall boy in the back. Oh, he's a good boy. If you say he didn't do it, he didn't do it. So he goes back to his boss. I'm going to quit. I can't take it. He goes, "Why?" He goes, I asked the boy in the class, who knocked down the walls of Jericho? Him say, not I, sir. I walk all the way home from school. And I said to the principal, he said, oh, that boy's a good boy. He said he didn't do it, He goes, well, look, you can't quit. We need you here to work. How much the wall cost? I pay for it myself. Thank you very much.